I've been avoiding doing this video so long already that the tea I made to avoid doing this video is already ice cold. So I guess, just like the last one, the only real way forward is to sit down and start talking, right? Is just to do this video. About a year and a half ago, sort of mid-pandemic, highly isolated, I moved out of Washington, D.C. I was living back in a single bedroom in my dad's house, still working on Quackalope, still producing content. And it was hard, right? That was a low summer for a lot of us. I don't think I'm alone in just how stressful that period of time was. And I was having a really hard time connecting and reaching out and figuring out ways to be honest and vulnerable and still feel like there was a community here, right? So I filmed this video about a year and a half ago. You can go watch it. In fact, I just watched it before sitting down and filming this second edition. It was titled 5 Things I Don't Want You to Know That Have Held Me Back. It did all right. It did very well. And it's been a year and a half. And the channel has changed and my life has changed. And yet those elements, those things still remain. There's still a pile of things I don't want you to know about. And this video is sort of a response to that. This video is my attempt to pull down some of those walls, to just have a conversation and share and let people know, despite how hard it is to effectively and efficiently communicate with each other, that both of us sitting here and you sitting there watching this, we're just two people, right? Full of weird quirks and insecurities and a pile of things that I genuinely don't want you to know. Things that I hide from you or avoid telling you about. Conversations that I might, twist at a right angle just to get out of the uncomfortable fact that there's things I'm self-conscious about. There's stuff I struggle with. There's a whole history behind me, and sometimes it's easier if you hide that. But it never actually helps. After that first video, I had a family come up to me with a young son. And they said they sat down and watched that video together. And for him to see someone like me, someone that he sees as having an audience and being reasonably successful on the internet, which is a weird place to be, to see me talk about the fact that I bite my nails and I'm self-conscious about doing miniature videos and stuff because of that, it meant something, and he related and he connected and that was cool. And then I was looking back through the video and my style has changed completely. Hopefully I'm maybe a bit more confident on the camera, but honestly, that same kid, 27 years old, sitting there is in a lot of ways the same kid that's now 29 years old sitting here across the camera. And it's weird watching yourself back. I don't do it too often here on the channel. I don't flash back. There's this kind of... It's hard at times because everything feels so close and yet it feels a distance away. So, let's swing into this. This video is 5 or 8 or 10 things I don't want you to know about me. And we're going to start with, some generic physicals that I write off by saying generic, right? The simple stuff. Honestly, part of me's more scared about talking about that element than the other things. So I'll use the term generic in order to hide that from you and obscure the truth there. I'm going to get into mental, background, and YouTube. So let's have a conversation. So let's start with the top of the ticket, the stuff that I have here listed at the top. Teeth, body, nails, and hair. Where do we dive in? Well, first off, the first video I talked about the fact that I don't do like miniature painting videos and stuff like that because I still bite my nails. You can see them cropped down to the wire, and I actually stopped for a solid 2 months earlier this year. But then I kept picking, and they kept getting longer, and I kept ripping them off again, and now I'm just back to the point now where they bug me, and I bite them. It's got to do a bit with anxiety. It's a habit. There's a lot that goes into it. But no. Yeah, I need to try to stop again. I thought I'd kicked the habit, and I'm really disappointed in myself that I didn't, and that I haven't, because that was something important to me, something that I thought I could just kind of like look in the face and overcome. I don't think it's a good habit. I don't like the way it looks, and I do avoid producing certain types of content here on the channel because, again, I just don't think it's I don't think it looks nice. And that gets more complicated, right? When we filmed this video the first time, we had like 10,000 subscribers. And I was worried about it then, and now we've got 35,000. Yeah, every time my hands are on camera, especially close up, it crosses my mind. It freaks me out. Body. I'm doing my best to lose weight, but the last 2 years have not been kind to me. I was 208 pounds, which is 3 pounds away from the heaviest I've ever been, which was also correlated with one of the most depressed times I'd ever been in my life. I'm 201, 202 now, but that's only after the last 2 weeks or so of focused sort of diet and really monitoring and watching what I'm eating. And yeah, I've never had a really strong body image, honestly. I've always been fairly self-conscious. When I was a teenager, I had pretty bad acne, kind of over my shoulders, back, face, all of that. And so now I'm larger than I'd like to be. I'm uncomfortable in a lot of my clothing, and I'm doing my best to kind of work at that. But it's definitely something that rests on my mind, especially with like the vlogs and stuff we do, right? Hair. This one got added to the list before I actually went back and watched the other video, but oh, that long hair pulled back in a single braid, I look terrible. But let's be honest, I mean, I'm 29 years old, and it never crossed my mind that like thinning and balding would be an issue. But yeah, it bugs me. And I understand now why guys like get up into their 30s or 40s and it starts eating at them. It's not terrible, especially cut short, but when my hair starts getting longer, you can definitely see, I mean, it is way thinner than it was when I was younger. I think this new hairstyle works fairly well, trying to keep it a little bit closer cropped and styled a bit. But yeah, that's been something new that I've been dealing with and facing down. I'd like, even though I think it's pretty much unavoidable for you guys not to notice, but I mean, my preference would be to wear hats and cover up and not have you see how horrendously thin certain parts of my hair are. And the final thing, I mentioned this in the earlier video, but let's dig into it more. Teeth. Yeah, I still, small Kentucky town, I don't know that it's worth, and I don't even know if financially I could, try to go through the process of getting everything fixed that needs to be fixed. I mean, at this point, it's just going to be one of those things that I live with and that I regret our family never focusing on. But I've got the hook tooth there. I've got the tint of yellow. I've got 3 root canals in the bottom of my teeth. They're so bad that I've had a tooth broken just sitting for the better part of a year because I don't want to go kind of get it dealt with, right? I've got a spot where I need to get a tooth put in has just been an empty hole for a while. And I could come up with countless excuses for why they are the way they are, right? Kentucky well water, and the combination of my mom kind of going through chemotherapy when I was in my early to mid teens. All of that took attention off of those little things like proper, dental care and braces and stuff like that when I was younger. It doesn't change the fact that I wish I had them looking nicer, and I'm self-conscious about the way they feel and how I look when I smile and whether or not people will notice, especially when you're on camera like this, right? Yeah. So that's been something that's been on the top of my mind, and let's be honest, just about like the whole process, right? I don't like going to the dentist. I avoid that whole thing, but then on top of that, working here, doing this full time, it's not like you have dental or anything like that. So I'm terrified of whatever it would cost to actually go through the process of getting everything fixed up. So, just something on my mind. I feel like this is a little bit more helter-skelter than the last one, but then again, I don't remember the last one other than me sitting down and watching it, and it was probably just about the same. Me working through thoughts and trying to talk and share those with you. Let's talk about the mental stuff. Part of me here worried that this video isn't going how I wanted it to go. Like my brain just jumped to, just restart. Just go back to 0. We're not going to do that because I spent 2 hours avoiding it. So I think we'll keep going. So, what's going on in my mind, or what has gone on in my mind? Well, one thing that I don't want you all to know about, and this is weird because this is something that I'm not actually ashamed of. It's just one of those puzzle pieces that's really hard to manage, especially with the world opening back up. I am horrible at names. My memory systems just, they don't hook onto them. Straight memorization has never been something I've been skilled at. When I was younger, I used to not be able to repeat the entire 12 months in a row whenever the rhyme or the rhythm of them stops. Or for instance, I can't start in the middle of the alphabet and continue forward just blindly. It's never worked for me. I have a very visual memory. I play a lot of visual games as well. I like things that make sense with an archetype or a story or an image that I can hold in my mind, and names don't often do that. Nicknames I typically get a lot easier, but names themselves don't typically attach in the same way. So I am so bad at names that I am terrified of using people's names. I avoid using, close friends of mine. I will avoid using their name. Someone who I've repeated their name 70 times that day, I will avoid using their name because I'm scared to death, and I have it in my mind that I'm going to mess it up. I forgot that we might have kids watching this. I'm scared I'm going to mess it up. And that stinks. And everyone that you watch that's telling you how to make connections with people and how to, do business stuff and all of that are all, get people's names down, know how to talk to people, know who people are, and if we run into each other at a convention or something like that, I'm very sorry, but the combination of me being horrible at names and this growing insecurity I have around that fact means that even if I remember your name, I will be scared to death that I've forgotten it, or that I'll use the wrong one, that I will avoid actually utilizing it. So that's something that's on my mind. Informed. I'm actually getting a bit better on this one. This is something that we talked about, though, in the original video. Alex mentioned the other day him doing his top 100, and I was like, I'm never going to do a top 100. He's like, why? I'm like, that's just so many games. I don't feel like I know enough. And then I look back and I'm playing like 50 games a week. My personal collection has 400 or 500 games in it, and still I have this kind of innate egg inside my gut that's like, you don't know enough, you haven't played enough, you haven't done enough. Who are you to talk about board games or two-player games or Euros or Lacerdas, and you haven't played every single one that's out there? And we're trying, and we're still playing as much as possible. That's part of the puzzle of what we do. But yeah, I still have this gut check and this part of me that's terrified that I just don't have enough information. Right? How can I share 100 of the best games with you? I mean, it took pulling teeth, no pun intended, to get my top 10 list out. That was hard. And even now, like, I'll see people comment on it, just critical of a few of them. And I'll start asking myself questions like, oh, should that game have been there? Why was it included? Am I dumb for liking this game? Have I not played 7 other games that maybe might be better? It's a constant puzzle. And it's a constant kind of weight and thing that I'm sometimes terrified of. Let's talk about a combination of my tattoos and mental health. I have a whole collection of tattoos. I started getting them when I was 19 or so. A lot of them actually correlate with my own kind of mental health and body image. They helped pull me out of a fairly dark place. But something that I've never really touched on directly here on the channel, because this is a gaming channel, right? So why do we dig into weighty stuff? But throughout my mid-teens, and then especially like my first year of college, my freshman year, when I was about 19, 20 years old, I struggled with a lot of severe depression and mental health and self-abuse and self-harm and a pile of stuff like that. So if you're dealing with stuff like that, like it can feel sometimes like you're the only person in this isolated island, and as much as you're screaming and reaching out to other people, they just can't functionally hear you. And that's a really hard thing for me to look back on, because I was yelling as loud as I could to as many people as I could. And I was also really good at hiding it. And there was these two disparate parts of me. One that just like desperately needed help. And then this other part that just didn't want anyone to know, right? I wanted things to be secret and hidden, and I was ashamed, and it's not a good look, right? To be struggling with mental health or going through dark times or having a really hard time at life and at school and just every day sinking. And I've got better nowadays of asking people for help and reaching out to people when I need. And just so you know, I don't do conversations like this or videos like this when I'm in a position where I actually need any help, because it's not the responsible thing to do to talk about your journey and your struggle to an audience of people who might be reaching out about their own if you're not in a position where they can come to you safely. So I'm keeping that in mind, just so you know. But yeah, when I was in my early 20s, and still consistently every now and then, like I'm in a really good season right now. But a year ago, the kid that filmed that last video a year and a half ago, I felt like I was drowning every day. And that was not on my own. I mean, the world was struggling, and still is in some ways. But I didn't feel like I could catch a breath. And I remember when I lost a few of the first contracts, like my entire photography career, I called up a friend and just broke, right, on the phone, just holding my breath, gasping. I mean, it's probably the closest to a panic attack I've ever had. So I've struggled with severe depression and depression episodes in the past. I don't see any coming up on the horizon, but still to this day there'll be every now and then, every month or so, every couple months sometimes when it's been really good. I'll just have that pop. And for a day or two or three, I'll just feel these like shades, right? Just these gray glasses just drop over my eyes. And the only thing my mind and body wants to do is sink and waste time and absorb myself in all the bitterness and all the sadness and all the negativity and all the different voices of people that don't like me and do like me but have criticisms and this it the internet, social media doesn't actually help with any of that. And yet at the same time it does, right? It connects us more than we ever have been before, and at the same time gives us the feeling of connection more than we've ever had before, whilst not really having the application of it. Boardgames is kind of a salve to that, which is funny because we're all playing a physical in-person game and watching stuff here online. But I said I was going to mention tattoos, and this is where kind of the weird, overly personal stuff comes in, right? Because when I was my worst, my most depressed, I used to, do a bit of self-harm, mostly not for the pain, mostly for the image and the physicality of it. Everyone has their own kind of expression. In a lot of ways, for me, it was sort of a saving grace and a cry for help that no one paid attention to or saw or chose to saw. I'm not sure which. And if people don't know how to deal with that, it's hard, because what are people supposed to do when you say that you're sad or depressed, or you try to reach out to a counselor for help but you're unwilling to talk or share, or they see evidence of something? And I don't know. It's hard, even me, coming from a position of someone who has been there, to know how to relate or know how to empathize and know how to provide solutions. For myself, it was just 6 months of sorrow, 6 months of functioning for about 5 hours a day, and then I just had to kind of stand up, because there was two options. I was either going to do something that I would never be able to take back, or I was going to have to move forward. And part of that process was some of these tattoos. Specifically, I have people every now and then ask me about these here. And I won't go into detail again because I don't know who's watching, I suppose. But the lines of my wrist just kind of remind me of that time period. Ever since I got those tattoos, they've been a visual indicator of where I've been. They sort of have stitching across them a bit. And so they're just theirs. They're echoes that I can't escape from, right? Memories that for me are comforting and good reminders. So yeah. So there's some mental health stuff. Let's talk about my background. Stuff that, when I was growing up, people every now and then will ask about, my lack of accent. I'm from Kentucky. I'm from the Bluegrass region, Kentucky. I was born in, where was I born? Somerset, Kentucky, I believe. Grew up in Wilmore, Kentucky. Graduated from Berea College in Berea, Kentucky. And I am more proud of where I come from now than I was when I grew up. But I remember being a kid, just being worried about the stigma that comes from being in Kentucky. I was fully cognizant of it, right? The accent and the twang and, the fact that my grandparents live in a double wide, a very nice double wide, but when you're a teenager, it just doesn't look as good. So, whatever little bit of me still wants to hide or pretend, that's who I am. I'm a Kentucky boy from near Lexington. I grew up with a dad who was a volunteer firefighter and a 7th grade history teacher. My mom had breast cancer from the time I was I guess 4 or 5, for 7 years until I was about 10 or 11. I don't remember the exact date. After that, we moved down to North Carolina for a little bit, and I bounced around between my dad's and my grandparents, and then back to my dad's, and then I dropped out of high school, and then I lived back with my grandparents, and then I graduated high school, and then I went to college. I am not too fancy. And sometimes I kind of wish I had that accent now. So if you have one, if you were born with it, or you've learned to use it, or you've just gotten it from the people that you've been around, I think they're cool. Whatever they are. Whatever twang or dialect or little vocalization you put on your words, they indicate where you're from and who you are. So when I get around the right people, I can swing into a country accent. When I get into the right people, I'll have a bit more of one. But most of the time you just hear it in expressions or vocalizations or something like that. Background with grandparents. I have one of those things I'm conflicted about. Because I don't know if it's something that I don't want you to know, or just something that I kind of want to talk about, I want to share. And it's a balancing act, right, of how much you share. So if you've been enjoying the vlogs and enjoying seeing trips down to do woodworking with my grandfather and stuff like that, which I hope you have been, you'll know that we've been trying to go back about once a month. Well, grandparents are going back into quarantine for 2 reasons. One, because Omicron is spreading, but then also, more specifically, is not just because they're older, but Grandpa's going back in for radiation treatments, chemo, and my family doesn't do a very good job at talking about medical health. I think they think it's going to worry the kids too much. Cancer scares me, though. I guess it makes sense, given my mom. So this is like the 3rd or 4th treatment he's had. I guess the whatever it is with your prostate, the numbers are back up, and so he's got to go through a bit more treatment, which wipes him off his feet and makes him exhausted, and it's hard. So we won't be doing those trips for at least a few months. And I'm going to do another longer update. I'll probably have a vlog about getting my own wood shop started or something, just to continue the process. But yeah, I'm scared about that, man. My grandpa and my grandma are 2 amazing people. They took care of me, retired early to come take care of the grandkids and come help my mom and our family when she was sick, their daughter. Grandpa took me hiking on the Appalachian Trail when I was 13, which is probably one of the most foundational things that I've ever done. We spent about 3 months together out there, hiking from Pennsylvania to Maine, Penmar to Mount Katahdin. And beyond that, they helped me get into college, helped me find work and a job, and have always just been there through so much chaos and stress and heartache that I've put them through. They've always just been there as supportive figures. And I've been through death before. I've dealt with it. But, I don't know, I think you know what it feels like, and you might get better at dealing with it. But at the same time, you don't, because it's still different, and it has different strings attached. And I'm going to regret a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to do. I mean, especially over the last 2 years, right? As the world decided to give up on us. And it's been harder and harder to go back and see them. So I'm sad about that. But hopefully in about 3 or 4 months, we'll be back up and running. And we'll go visit them twice in a month for a little while to make the most of it. And YouTube. 3 things I don't want you to know about YouTube. First and foremost, I listen to way too many negative comments. I read every comment that's posted on this channel, by the way. I go through I don't always have time to respond to them all. There's way too many, and we're producing daily videos now, but there is not a comment that I miss. And some of them hurt. Some of them are mean. Some of them are well-intended. Some of them are completely fair criticism that strike at the nerve. And then some of them, feel like a conversation that needs to be had that you just can't have online because there's no way to effectively engage with someone, and I don't know who's sitting across the screen, and I always put it as like my dad or my uncle or my best friend sitting there typing on the keyboard. And so when I read what you write, I'm reading it like it is someone who's being thoughtful and careful and pointed with the criticism that they level. When in reality, sometimes it's a, 14-year-old kid. Not to begrudge 14-year-old kids, but I was one myself. And we just don't have context for what we're saying to other people. So those of you that support and comment and engage, thank you. And those of you that are doing so on this video, thank you. And those of you that are critical, for good reason, thank you. Because I read those comments and I take them to heart and they echo and I do adjust and change. And then those of you that are just mean, if you're not intending to be, but you think you could have gauged your words a little bit better. It's not just me, it's one of the dynamics that everyone deals with on social media. But yeah, it's too easy to believe everything that's written comes from a verified source that is emotionally stable and worth listening to. And even when you know that, when you know you're tricking yourself, it is still really easy to listen. Number 2, that I don't want you to know about me here on YouTube, is that I really want to succeed. And I wrote that down just because I think it's a fair thing to say. I mean, how often do we admit that? Right? We take the time to just be like, I'm trying really hard. And I really want to succeed. And I want to do well. And I want a successful channel. And I want to work in the board game space. And I want you all to be happy and proud. And I want an amazing community. And we have a lot of that. And we've done really, really fantastic. But I still want to succeed. So when you see me posting daily videos or exploring and experimenting with the way that we do media and content or testing other platforms or any of the weird collaborations or road trips or work that we put in, it's all built around that. I'm not doing this just for fun, right? It's not just a part-time hobby for me. I am trying with every ounce of effort that I have to do good. And that's a weird, vulnerable place to be. Because what if I'm watching this in about 2 years and I haven't? Or I've lost everything I've built? Just a thought. And then the last thing that I don't want you to know about me. Sometimes, still to this day, I shut down. I already mentioned this a little bit when it came to mental health. But I'm a weird twist of anxiety and sociability, and really it kind of exhausts some of those reserves being here filming stuff on camera. Sometimes I just want to sleep for like 15 hours and watch 7 YouTube videos, and I'm just tired. But I don't want you to know that. Because sometimes that's the part of the story that we like to hide, right? The fact that we get sick or exhausted or gorge ourselves on gummies when we're in the middle of our diet, or the fact that we get depressed when we're supposed to be happy. That's the part of the story that we don't like sharing with people. So, I figured I would. This video is all about trying to be a bit vulnerable to however many people watch. It is harder and becomes harder to keep up and communicate and engage the bigger the channel gets. It's easier to close a door and lock yourself in a bubble and continue hiding all the little bits and pieces about yourself that you just don't want to have laid bare on the table. It's easier to go through the process of posting a picture of you smiling every day, even the ones where you feel like crap. It's easier to avoid showing your teeth, to not admit that you have sat on camera in pain filming a video that needed to be done. It's easier to not film miniature videos, which I still haven't done, by the way, because you bite your nails. It is easier to sit and let your tea get cold than it is to be here on camera. Or you, sitting and watching. So, this is an attempt to combat that with myself, with you, to have a conversation, to bring down the walls a little bit, to remind you that here, I'm a dude with short nails, thin hair, and bad teeth, who's a bit overweight, comes from Eastern Kentucky, gets depressed sometimes, reads all of your negative comments, and listens to them way more than he should. And I'm trying really hard to succeed, and sometimes that leads to me just wanting a break. We're doing really good. The version of myself that's filming this compared to the version of myself a year and a half ago that was drowning is amazing. I'm really grateful for this community. But in the chaos of it, and the rush of it, and the sprint of content creation, it is really easy to forget that. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And the catchphrase we've had for the better part of 2 years or so, whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.